Wait, is this how Koska dies? Does this foreshadow the death of Koska? Hey there, guys. What's up? I'm really sorry for shooting this video really quickly, and the quality will not be like top notch, but I really wanted to talk about what happened in Berserk. Because the latest Berserk chapter, it was lit. It was amazing. It was one of the best Berserk chapters I've seen since Koska regaining her sanity. It was crazy. So this is going to be a really, really quick video analysis of what happened, and we're going to focus on the three biggest questions that arise from this particular chapter. So let's begin with a recap of what happened in the previous chapter. So what happened was, in the final panel of the previous chapter, this dwarf blacksmith dude, we're still in Elf Island, by the way, he smacks Guts with one of his hammers, and he triggers the suit. He triggers the Berserk suit. So in this chapter, we begin with Guts raging and screaming because the suit is taking over him, the armor is taking over him, and he starts having, this was a really short chapter, by the way, really short. So he starts having this like blood memories. Basically, the way that the dwarf character describes it is that the armor itself has somehow absorbed some of the most traumatic and tragic memories of its previous user, which we know was Skull Knight. So what happens is we get this flashback. We get a couple of flashbacks. So what happens is, first flashback, it's like this maelstrom, this eclipse almost like event. We're definitely in the more ethereal realm. We're not on Earth. And we see 5 figures. And the only figure we recognize is Void. He's in the middle. And here's the thing. The other 4 members are most likely members of the God Hand. The previous members of the God Hand. And how do we know this? How do we know this? The God Hand has been depicted in various forms in this series. We had Slan, in the weird forest, in the Quilloth forest, in this interstice. And then we had the eclipse. But overall, the God Hand is atop of all the other apostles. Whenever they're depicted, they're atop of them. They're on top of them. They're really high, they cannot be reached. And even if they appear on the forefront, like with Femto, everyone else is on the background. All the other apostles are behind them. But in this instance, all 5 figures in this panel are very close to each other. And that leads me to believe, yes, these are the previous members of the God Hand. We have this weird woman. We have this almost like a spiked skeleton. We have this like old deep sea god creature guy. Looks like Poseidon. And we have this old other monster thing. So, wow. Are these the God Hand members of the time of Geyserik? Most likely, okay, most likely. We've never seen Void be surrounded by simple apostles. So, next up, what do we see? We see a tragic memory from the perspective of Skull Knight. And what he's doing, he's holding this beautiful, gorgeous, blonde woman in his hands. And he's like shocked. You can see it in his eyes. He doesn't believe what has happened. And this woman is in his arms, and she dies. She appears to either faint or lose consciousness, but it's heavily implied that she died in this memory. And you can see Skull Knight, he wears the skull. He has the armor, right? The berserker armor. And you can see on her like shoulder or breast, you can see she has the brand of sacrifice. So she was sacrificed in in what happened between Void and Skull Knight. And the chapter ends with, of course, Guts snapping out of it, and with the help of Shirk, I guess. Yeah, I don't know how you call her. And basically, what Skull Knight says is, "You just witnessed the end of a king and the beginning of a man who hunted shadows." Of course, he's alluding to himself. He's talking about himself in the past. That's clear. And this chapter was so short, but this is one of the most impactful chapters ever. We got so many more info and so many more questions. Okay? We got answers, but we got a lot more questions. And these are the three biggest questions that arise from this chapter. Question number one: what happened to the other four members of the God Hand? We were assuming up to this point that the members of the God Hand rotate, in a sense, with every major cycle, every major era, so to speak. But in this iteration, we see Void is in there. So was he the last member to join, the fifth member of the previous God Hand, and he somehow survived to be part in the next God Hand? And what does that mean about God Hand members? Can they survive these major events? And how do they even die? Who can kill a God Hand member? Is it possible that Femto will survive after the end of the series? That's a idea I don't want to think about. So this was the first major question: what happens to the God Hand members? What happened to the previous God Hand members, and how do they rotate? How does that thing work? Number two: who is that woman? And obviously, we're gonna get more blood memories in the future, right? Since the dwarf dude even coined a term for it. I think this is not the last time we see of this woman in the form of long forgotten memory. But who is she? Was she a princess that the guy Zurich had fallen in love with? Was she an acolyte of Void, who was tricked by Void to sacrifice herself? This is all really crazy. We don't know, but we will learn. The thing is, in the past, we didn't even consider of this case of her existing. You know, this is a complete wild card, because we had never gotten any information about any princess or any woman that Geyserik was involved with. Wait, is this how Koska dies? Does this foreshadow the death of Koska? I think yeah. Here's how. So for the longest time, we thought that Void and Skull Knight were fighting for supremacy. They were fighting for power, control of the Empire. But this changes the equation completely. This woman is potentially a part of a love triangle. And here's the thing. We start seeing more and more comparisons and more similarities between Guts and Skull Knight. So far, we only had that they were wearing the same suit. They were wearing the same armor. And that, technically speaking, they were strugglers. They were anomalies on this world. And of course, they both had a beef with a God Hand member, right? So you could say that Guts is another version, a future version of Skull Knight. But with this, it almost feels like history is repeating itself. So wait a minute. Not only did they have all these similarities, but there was also an erotic and a romantic aspect to their storyline. A woman that they really cared about and that they were trying to save. That sounds very similar. And if this woman died, what's going to happen to Koska? You might say, how is that related? Because we know that history may not be repeating itself in this universe, but it goes like a spiral. So similar events transpire. Is it possible that this foreshadows that these events will occur again? This time with Guts holding Koska in his arms. That's a pretty scary question right there. I hope we don't get to see that. But here's the thing. There's one last detail that I think most people are going to miss. How chaotic an eclipse can be and a sacrifice can be. So where are the claws? Where are the teeth? Where are the wounds on her body? How did she die? You know, is it possible that she died so peacefully by leaning back during an eclipse, which, by the way, we know killed hundreds of thousands? I don't think so. Okay, admittedly, maybe her bottom half, the bottom half of her body is missing, and we wouldn't know. Which leads me to believe that she survived the eclipse as well, just like Koska. And if that is the case, ooh boy, then the similarities become too many. And the previous scenario I mentioned of this being a foreshadowing for Koska's death is coming ever closer. You know, so I guess we'll have to see. This was a really quick thing. Yeah, I might actually delete it later if it looks trash. But I really wanted to get these news out there, guys, and I was so excited by this chapter. I really wanted to talk about that. I was already working on 3 other videos actually, and I put everything on hold to work on this little thing. So did you read the chapter? And if you did, what did you think about it? I'm really curious to hear. And what did you think about my 3 questions? Try to answer the 3 questions that I posed down below in the comment section down below. As always, if you like this video, click like and smash the subscribe button. I guess I'll see you in my next Moriarty the Patriot video. Good night, everyone. Until next time, my fellow strugglers.